To the Political Exchange. I'm Shereen Bhan, and today we're in conversation with author, economist, former minister, Mr. Arun Shourie. Thanks very much, Mr. Shourie, for joining us on CNBC TV 18. Exactly this time, 4 years ago, is when we had our last conversation when the government had just won the elections, and you had put together a white paper on the economy that you were going to present to Mr. Modi, sir. I don't know whether you remember that conversation or you remember the white paper on the economy that you had put together, but I'll talk to you about your assessment of the economy and the government's track record in a bit. Let me talk to you about the contents of your book and the issue that is capturing mindspace and headlines today, and that is the crisis in the judiciary. Whether it is a battle between the executive and the judiciary, or it's a battle within the judiciary itself, these are questions that will be answered over time. But given the fact that yesterday we've seen the decision of the collegium, which has been deferred now on what it intends to do, whether it intends to send back the name to the government or not for a week. What do you make of that? Do you believe that this is an attempt to de-escalate, or do you believe that this is giving in to what the executive wants?
Well, it is obvious that the collegium could not have come to a decision, and the record shows that at least 4 of the judges would have been of one view, that we should send it back. If you look at their letters of the past, statements of Justice Kurian Joseph and others, then therefore it must be that the Chief Justice, I would presume, has taken the view that no, we must give more names if the government wants more names and so on. And that certainly is very convenient for the government. Whatever the motives and reasoning of the Chief Justice, it certainly helps the government.
Do you believe that if the decision is of the collegium to not send back the name to the government as was expected, this is going to deepen the crisis, worsen the crisis?
Yes, it will be a fatal blow to the collegium and to the Supreme Court. If they do not send it back, in fact, they have already delayed it too long. In my view, as I have said earlier, they should not have had an oath-taking ceremony of one judge when they had sent 2 names. That itself was a completely non-Gandhian thing to do.
What is the way out of this now?
The way out is for the judiciary to stand absolutely firm on every little comma. That's the only way.
But do you see that happening?
No, I don't see it happening because of the Chief Justice.
And hence I ask you, what is the way forward? And a few other judges. Pardon? And hence I ask you, what is the way forward?
The way forward is precisely for the others to keep showing up the steps which are being taken that are helpful to the government. For the other judges to keep showing those up, for disclosing them to the public, and for all of us to be vigilant and to keep pinpointing those steps and opposing those steps.
So you're suggesting that the other judges, the 4 judges, for instance, who held the press conference in January, that they should do more of that now?
Yes, they should put it on record. I would really look forward to the time when we get to know the reasons on account of which this decision has again been deferred.
Do you believe that that ought to have been part of the announcement that came in? I mean, there was a one-word deferral that was mentioned by the Supreme Court yesterday. You believe that they ought to have explained why they chose to defer the matter?
Yes, they always keep talking about transparency, isn't it? Doesn't Supreme Court say that about other people? So what are they doing now? So I believe that the court is in mortal danger because of the mentality of the government to occupy the entire space, geographical space, the institutional space, the personal space. And therefore, for the government, and the government is determined of this. That is why, in my view, it is a totalitarian mentality, total control of the total space. Now, the only pillar left standing is the judiciary, and they will not leave it alone. You block them on the NJAC, they'll come back to you on appointments. And the kind of things that they, suddenly they wake up to this business of regional representation. I mean, are you again having reservations in one way or the other in this just now?
So you're saying that there is no validity to the argument that's being presented on the regional representation?
Of course not. And that should not be the criterion. Criterion must be competence. Competence to deliver judgments from a national point of view.
Why do you believe that what we're seeing today is worse than what we've seen in the past? I'm not suggesting that, you know, let's do comparisons between the present and the past. I'm saying, why do you believe that what we're seeing today is worse than what has happened in the past? Because the attempts of political capture of independent institutions, including the judiciary, have been attempted in the past.
I just don't understand why journalists keep asking this question. Has there not been murder in the past?
Yes.
Has there not been killing of children in Kashmir in the past through these pellet guns? Does that mean that tomorrow you should do it?
No, I'm not suggesting it makes it any better.
No, then why is the question being asked?
I'm saying, what do you find being different in the manner in which it is being done?
Madam, it is much more determined, it is much more systematic and much more unrelenting than even during the emergency. Secondly, the Supreme Court itself is in a much weaker position in its composition. And in the way, I don't want to, use words that are harsh, but certainly even in the caliber of judges. Do you think that anybody would ever have thought of doing such a thing in the 1950s in India, with Panditji at the helm, or Patanjali Shastri as the Chief Justice? No. And could they have succeeded? Would Mr. Subbarao have kept quiet? No. And during the emergency itself, when Mr. Justice A.N. Ray, Chief Justice A.N. Ray, constituted a bench to overturn Keshwanand Bharati, in 2 days he himself had to dissolve the bench because he saw that all the judges were against the proposition. I don't see that happening today.
So given the fact that you don't see that kind of unity within the judiciary, you
not
see
just unity but caliber.
Plus caliber, plus you see an unrelenting, in your words, attempt on the part of the executive to try and ensure that its will prevails, then what is the way out?
The way out is you have to resist the authoritarian moves of the government in every sphere and every move and go on doing it.
So you said that you would expect that the 4 judges, like they did the press conference in January, to continue their attempts to come public and come on record with it.
Yes, that is part of their job.
What about politicians? What about, for instance, the
impeachment motion? Now you'll come to that.
No.
Just one second.
Yeah.
You have asked a question about the 4 judges. Yes, but please don't leave the task just to 4 judges.
Sure.
The media must stand up and see and not get caught in these useless statements of ministers and others. Everybody has to contribute to shielding these institutions. Mr. K.P.S. Gill used to say very well that you can't have a first-rate anti-terror operation and a third-rate system in the courts. In the same way, you can't have a situation in which the judges will say freedom, but we will only keep asking this or that. Is freedom good or not good? Freedom can also be misused. Why is it not? Why should there not be restrictions? That's the type of questions we are asking. And the same way, citizens alone cannot save freedom if let us say in this case, the judges don't stand up. So everybody has to do his part of the job. That's the way out.